There comes a moment when the world grows silent, not the kind of silence you hear, but the kind that lives inside you. A silence that doesn't bring peace, but echoes with everything you've lost. You wake, and the air feels heavier than before. The light that used to warm you now just falls cold across your skin. You look in the mirror, and the person staring back feels like a stranger who forgot your name. You begin to wonder, when did the world lose its color? When did your laughter fade into something distant and foreign? You've been fighting for so long that even your strength feels tired. The heart that once burned with hope now beats just to survive the day. Pain becomes familiar, not as an enemy, but as a companion who refuses to leave. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from standing in a crowd and feeling invisible. It comes from trying to explain what no one else can see. The war that rages quietly behind your calmest smile. You tell yourself it's fine. You tell yourself it's just another day. But deep down, you know something inside you is breaking. Slowly, quietly, like glass under pressure. You remember when you used to dream, when you believed that life was something you could shape, something you could conquer. But now, even the thought of hope feels heavy. The nights grow longer. The noise in your mind never stops. Every thought becomes a storm, every breath a battle. You hide it well. You smile when you must. You laugh when expected. But inside, you're collapsing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." But how do you revoke the storm when it lives inside your chest? How do you silence a scream that no one else can hear? You begin to question everything. Your purpose, your worth, your place in this world. You begin to wonder if you've already lost the person you were meant to be. And in that wondering, you feel a pull, a whisper in the dark, a quiet voice that says, "Stay, stay a little longer, endure a little further, because even when the heart cracks, there is strength in the breaking. You are not finished. You are only beginning to understand the weight of being human. And though the night feels endless, the dawn is already waiting. On the other side of your endurance, there is a moment when pain becomes quiet, not gone, just quiet, like the sea after a storm. Still heavy, still dark, but motionless. You stop running. You stop fighting. You just exist. And in that stillness, the truth begins to whisper. Not in words, but in the weight pressing on your chest. You start to see what suffering really is. It's not punishment. It's not fate mocking you. It's life. Speaking in a language of loss, you feel the weight of everything you've carried. Every expectation, every failure, every version of yourself you tried to become for someone else's approval. You've spent your life trying to prove you are enough to the world, to others, to yourself. And yet, no matter how much you give, it never feels complete. You succeed and still feel empty. You love and still feel alone. You pray and still feel unheard. The soul begins to ache, not for more, but for meaning. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." You start to see how true that is. Most of your pain was not carved by the world, but by your thoughts about it. How often have you tortured yourself with stories that weren't real? How often have you replayed moments that no longer exist, as if they could hurt you again? You carry ghosts, regrets, mistakes, things you said, things you didn't. You replay them, trying to fix them in your mind, as if suffering could rewrite the past. But the past doesn't change. Only you can. So you begin to watch yourself. You notice the thoughts that come, the emotions that rise and fall like tides. And for the first time, you realize you are not those thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. You begin to see the separation between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Epictetus said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." And yet, how often have you given your peace to the chaos of others? How often have you let their anger become your own, their silence become your shame? You start to see it now. You were never in control of the world, only of yourself. And the weight you carry is not the weight of life, but the weight of resistance. Fighting what already is. The mind wants control. The heart wants peace. The soul wants acceptance. And somewhere between the three, you've been tearing yourself apart. But pain, when faced without fear, starts to transform. It becomes a teacher, It strips you bare, until all that's left is truth. You begin to understand that suffering isn't the enemy. Running from it is. The Stoics didn't reject pain. They studied it. They faced it. They learned from it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." You whisper those words to yourself. Like a prayer, you repeat them until they stop sounding like wisdom and start feeling like reality. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your struggles are not walls meant to imprison you. They are mirrors meant to awaken you. And in this understanding, you start to breathe again. Not because the pain is gone, but because you've stopped fearing it. For the first time in a long time, you don't run. You sit with it. You listen. You feel. And in that silent dialogue between you and your suffering, you begin to sense something sacred, a truth rising quietly from the ruins. You were never broken. You were only covered in the dust of everything that wasn't you. There comes a moment when silence no longer feels empty. It begins to speak. It whispers truths you've avoided, reflections you've buried deep beneath distraction. And slowly, you start to look inward, not out of choice, but out of necessity, because there's nowhere left to run. The pain outside has mirrored the pain within, and you realize they were never separate. You stand before the mirror, and it no longer shows your face. It shows your mind. Every scar, every belief, every illusion you once clung to, in the hope it would save you. The Stoics spoke often of control, not of others, not of events, but of oneself. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You've heard these words before, but now they burn differently. Now they reach a place deep inside the soul that had forgotten what power truly is. Power is not loud. It is not domination or victory over others. True power is stillness in the middle of chaos. It is calm when the world burns around you. It is the ability to say, "This moment will not own me." You begin to see the architecture of your suffering, how every emotion, every reaction was built upon thought, and every thought was built upon judgment. He hurt me. They betrayed me. I failed. I am not enough. But what if these are not truths, only stories the mind tells to make sense of chaos? Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You begin to test this. You replay the moments that haunt you, the heartbreaks, the losses, the failures. You ask yourself, what did I add to the pain? What story did I build around it? And in that question comes the first glimpse of freedom. Because once you see that pain is shaped by perception, you begin to reclaim your life. The mirror within shows you something else too. The beauty in your endurance. Every scar is proof that you refuse to surrender. Every tear, a baptism by truth. You are not weak because you hurt. You are human because you feel. And you are wise because you've learned to face the feeling. There is a sacred strength in sitting with your suffering without turning away. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Every hardship you endured has been shaping you quietly, like fire shaping steel. You begin to forgive yourself, not because you've done everything right, but because you finally see that forgiveness is the only way forward. The past doesn't define you. The pain doesn't own you. The opinions of others cannot measure your worth. The Stoics called this apatheia, not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. It is the art of remaining unshaken in a world that trembles. You realize now, you are both the storm and the calm after it, both the wound and the healer, both the lost and the found. You look again into the mirror. This time, you do not see a stranger. You see someone who has walked through fire and learned to carry light, someone who has fallen 100 times, but never stayed down, someone who has suffered, not in vain, but in evolution. And for the first time, you whisper something you haven't said in years, something that feels foreign on your tongue, but ancient in your soul. "I'm still here." And in that whisper, there is power, there is peace, there is rebirth. Something changes, quietly, subtly, not like a thunderclap, not like a miracle, but like a dawn you didn't notice until the sky began to glow. For the first time, the pain no longer feels like a curse, it feels like a calling. You begin to understand what once broke you was actually shaping you. What once felt like loss was only clearing space for truth. You start to see how the pieces fit together. Every rejection, every failure, every night you spent drowning in silence. They were never meaningless. They were the forge. And you were the blade being shaped. Marcus Aurelius said, "The universe is change, life is opinion." And suddenly, those words don't sound like philosophy. They sound like freedom. Change is the only constant. Everything you cling to will eventually fade, but so too will everything that hurts you. You realize you were never meant to control the storm. You were meant to learn to stand in the rain. Every breath becomes a lesson, every setback a teacher. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" And the world begins to answer, not with comfort, but with clarity. You see now, no one can truly harm you, except the judgments you place upon yourself. No one can truly imprison you, except the fears you refuse to face. The Stoics called this freedom of the soul, the understanding that peace is not the absence of suffering, but the mastery of it. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." So you start small. You master a moment, a thought, a reaction. When anger rises, you watch it. When fear comes, you breathe through it. When doubt whispers, you answer with stillness. And in this practice, you begin to see the truth. Control was never about the world. It was always about the self. You start to feel a strange strength. In your stillness, you no longer flinch at discomfort. You no longer crave validation. You no longer chase what was never yours to keep. You walk differently now. Not faster, not slower, but with purpose. You speak less. You observe more. You feel deeply, but no longer drown in those feelings. You realize that peace was not lost. It was buried under your resistance. Seneca once wrote, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." You repeat it quietly, as if reminding your soul what it already knows. Conquer yourself, your impulses, your fears, your doubts, your ego, and the world loses its power over you. You begin to see life as it truly is. Not good, not bad, just unfolding. You are not its victim. You are its witness, its participant, its student. You start to thank the pain, not for the hurt, but for the clarity it brought. You start to forgive the past, not to forget, but to free yourself from carrying it. You start to love the person you are becoming, not because they are perfect, but because they are present. For the first time, you see your reflection not as a wound that needs healing, but as a warrior that has returned home. And deep within, you feel it, the spark, the faint but undeniable pulse of something ancient and powerful, reawakening inside you. The part of you that was never defeated, never broken, never lost. The part of you that endured. And in that realization, you finally understand. You are not here to escape life's storms. You are here to become the storm. Calm, vast, unshakable. It begins quietly, not with grand revelation, but with discipline. Day after day, moment after moment, choice after choice. You learn that mastery is not born in fire. It's forged in repetition. In the unseen moments, when no one is watching, the Stoics spoke not of control over others, but of control over oneself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." And so you begin, not to speak about virtue, but to live it. Not to think about strength, but to embody it. You wake before the world stirs. You sit in silence. You breathe. You think of nothing but the present moment. There is no past here, no future, only now. The mind resists at first. It wants distraction, comfort, noise. But you endure, because mastery is not about comfort. It's about clarity. You begin to train your thoughts, as you would train a muscle. Every time your mind wanders toward fear, you bring it back to reason. Every time your emotions threaten to consume you, you remind yourself, they are not commands, only signals. You start to see life differently. What others call obstacles, you now call opportunities. Every hardship is a chance to practice strength. Every insult a lesson in patience. Every loss a reminder of impermanence. You no longer ask, "Why me?" You ask, "How can I use this?" Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." You begin to welcome the friction, because you know, it means you're being shaped. The world continues its chaos. People lie, fortunes rise and fall, seasons change. But you remain steady. Your peace no longer depends on the calm of the world. It depends on the calm within you. There is a strength in this silence, a quiet, unyielding presence. You no longer chase validation, for you have learned that the approval of others is a moving target. Your worth is no longer fragile. It does not depend on praise, success, or attention. It lives in how you rise, how you respond, how you remain aligned with what you know is right. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." And so you no longer rush. You no longer demand progress from yourself. You honor the slow work. You trust the unseen growth. Mastery is not the absence of weakness. It is the courage to face weakness without surrender. You begin to carry yourself differently, not proudly, but purposefully. When anger comes, you meet it with patience. When fear comes, you answer with faith. When temptation whispers, you listen, and then return to reason. You no longer see pain as punishment, but as purification. The more you endure with calm, the more peace you uncover. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining, so you endure, not because it is easy, but because you have learned that ease never built anything eternal. You live simply now. You need less. You feel more. You move through life with a grace that comes from detachment." The Stoics called it ataraxia, tranquility of the soul, not joy without sorrow, but calm amidst both. You find beauty in the ordinary, in the way the sunlight hits the window, in the quiet rhythm of your breath, in the humility of being alive, even when life feels heavy. Because now you understand, the goal was never perfection. It was presence, to see life clearly, to accept it fully, to meet every moment with dignity and stillness. You no longer fear loss. You no longer chase control. You walk the path, not because you must, but because it is who you are now. And in that steady walk, there is power, not of conquest, but of peace, the kind of peace that no storm can take away. And then it happens, not suddenly, not with thunder, or triumph, or the roaring applause of fate. It arrives quietly, like the breath between heartbeats, like dawn breaking after a lifetime of storms. Peace, not the kind you chase, but the kind that simply is, the kind that doesn't depend on victory, or forgiveness, or the world being kind. It comes from knowing, deeply, silently, that you are enough. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer seek to be understood. You no longer fight against what is. You've learned that life is not your enemy. It never was. It's the teacher that never stops showing up. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together. But do so with all your heart." You understand it now. Acceptance isn't surrender. It's wisdom. It's the understanding that peace doesn't come from having control, but from no longer needing it. You've stopped measuring your worth by the noise of the world. You've stopped comparing your journey to paths that aren't yours. You've stopped begging life to be easy and started asking to be strong. And in that quiet shift, everything changes. You no longer resist the flow. You move with it. You trust it. You let the river of life carry you, not because you are weak, but because you have finally learned that the river and you are not separate. You begin to live differently, not faster, not louder, but deeper. Each breath feels like gratitude. Each sunrise feels like a gift. Each moment feels complete, even in its imperfection. You stop chasing happiness and start embodying peace, because happiness is fleeting. It comes and goes like the tide. But peace is eternal when it's born within. Epictetus said,
"Freedom is the only worthy goal in life."
"It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." You finally understand the meaning of those words. Freedom was never out there. It was always within you, buried beneath expectation, fear, and noise. Now the world still moves as it always has. People rush, time fades, loss returns, but you stand still at the center of it all, calm, grounded, unmoved. You feel no need to argue, no urge to control. You watch, you listen, you act only when reason calls. You've learned the art of restraint, the beauty of silence, the power of calm. You no longer crave to be right. You crave to be wise. You no longer chase attention. You honor solitude. You no longer demand certainty. You find peace in not knowing. Seneca wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." So you do. Each day now stands alone, a gift, a moment, a life within a life. You wake not with dread, but with quiet reverence. You walk not with fear, but with gratitude. You live not in reaction, but in harmony. The storms will still come. They always do. But now you no longer curse the thunder. You simply watch the rain, knowing it will pass. You have become the calm, the stillness, the quiet beneath the noise. This is what it means to be unshakable. Not that the winds do not touch you, but that you no longer lose yourself in their sound. You have found the center of your soul, the place where no one can reach but you, where no opinion, no insult, no loss can touch the peace you've built. You have learned that life is neither cruel nor kind. It simply is. And your power lies in how you meet it. You are no longer the person who once begged for meaning. You have become the meaning. The one who can love without attachment, endure without bitterness, rise without arrogance, fall without despair. You have seen darkness and learned to walk through it with light. You have faced chaos and found stillness inside the storm. You have been broken and discovered that the cracks were only doorways to your soul. You have become your own guide, your own anchor, your own peace. And now when you look to the horizon, you no longer see an ending. You see a continuation. Because peace is not a destination. It's a way of traveling. The Stoics lived by it. You have rediscovered it. The strength to feel deeply, the wisdom to let go, the courage to begin again. And so, as the sun sets on everything you once were, you stand quietly, breathing in the gentle truth that has taken a lifetime to learn. You are not what has happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And in that choice, in that eternal present moment, you are free.